So
what's up with you?
Oh, well, it's been a big week.
Yeah.
So there was this tweet that came out earlier this week that...
Well, tweets never carry important information, do they?
Yeah, so
it's just
this one blindsided the military.
Oh, well...
It was...
that seems like a security hazard then.
Yeah, it was number 45 tweeting out that transgender people would not be allowed to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military, that we were going to be focused on fighting and winning wars, and, you know, we're not going to spend all that money on transition care.
Wow, well, that's very proactive of the President of the United States announcing this major new policy after he passed it, right, on Twitter?
Yeah, so that prompted a response from Department of Defense officials saying, no, this is not how policy changes in Department of Defense.
Wait, surely he passed the policy first and then tweeted afterwards, right?
No, this seemed to be one of his early morning tweets, and you know, where he's sitting somewhere and we don't know where, but he's tweeting, and it's early in the morning and it makes no sense. And anyway, yeah, the way it has to work.
Am I to understand that the President of the United States thinks that he just has to type things into the Twitter machine and they become law?
You know, I can't speak to what he thinks, but
okay.
I can speak to what the expectation is from the Secretary of Defense, which is that the Secretary of Defense will be notified in writing if there's going to be a change to policy, and he will pass that information.
And I assume Twitter doesn't count.
Twitter does not count. So as of right now, there is no policy change. And furthermore, the military wasn't asking for any policy change. The military moved forward with implementing open service for transgender military members last year. After, you know, Obama said, hey, we're going to do this. The RAND report came out on this issue, came out June 30th of 2016. And I have some information, because there's a lot of numbers getting thrown around about how many transgender people serve in the military and how much it's going to cost, and a lot of it is not really based on any facts. So I want to throw some numbers out there that are actually based on the RAND report, which is publicly available. You can download it and read it yourself. But basically, the best estimates that we have based on some demographic studies that have been done, the estimate is that between 1,320 and 6,630 transgender service members are currently in the active component. So the mid-range estimate of that is approximately 2,450, and that's out of a total population of 1.3 million. And then there's another 1,510 or so in the selected reserve. And the estimates are that an estimated 29 to 129 service members will seek transition care every year. So we're not talking about thousands of people who require transition care. The next thing is that, and I know that people have been throwing out numbers like, oh, there's 15,000, there's 150,000. Those numbers are not accurate. I'm not really sure where they're getting the 15,000 numbers. The 150,000 came from, I think it was the Williams Institute, that were studying how many transgender people have served in the military throughout history, or as long as we've been keeping track.
So if I've got my math right, just checking, you said 2,450 members out of 1.3 million members of the military are transgender, which works out to 0.1%.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so what is this going to cost? What's transition care cost? First of all, it's not that expensive. So it's an estimated $2.4 to $8.4 million in additional health care expenses, which represents between 0.04 and 0.13% increase in health care expenditures.
Oh, so that much increase in one not until one piece of the budget.
Right.
Right.
Yes. A small increase is all it is. And even the upper band estimates indicate that about 0.1% of the total force would seek transition care. So that's the upper boundary of it. If everybody basically that's trans seeks transition care.
But in theory, and as much as you can deduce what policy is from a tweet that that isn't policy, he's not just saying we won't pay for your transition anymore. He's saying if you are going to or have transitioned, then you will be removed from the military.
Exactly.
And I don't know what the strategy is. Yeah.
Yeah, the way the tweet came across, it said you wouldn't be allowed to serve in any capacity. So the other question is, he's clearly targeting the active component people, but the other thing is, does this affect DoD civilians? Because, you know, Department of Defense civilian people still serve the military in some capacity.
So scientists and analysts would also have to be removed.
Yeah, and so it's like, how expensive is this going to be in terms of replacing highly qualified, talented people, you know, who basically need minimal care? And additionally, those civilians actually, they're covered under the same, you know, health insurance program that other federal employees are covered under. So it's not like this is a special, you know, benefit to them.
So they're under some general health care policy, which means that, or either he will have to like have somebody draft up a special policy with exceptions for just military members, or he just announced that this policy is going to change for everybody in the who works in the government sector.
And that's part of the deal. When you change policy like this, there's supposed to be some implementation guidance provided, which I don't think you can do in 140 characters or less.
Watch me.
Yeah. Challenge accepted. Okay.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, this is really unprecedented because never before in history have we like taken away a right to serve like this. So, you know, we've integrated the military, you know, back in the, the 1940s when we did racial integration, and the military was ahead of the curve on that. And then, you know, there was gender integration. There's been the demise of don't ask, don't tell, at least for lesbian and gay and bi people. And now, you know, within the last year for trans people. And never before have we gone backwards and taken away you know, the ability to serve from a demographic like this. So no one's really sure how this is going to play out because it is so unprecedented. You just don't do this. I mean, it's pretty weird in the sense that there is, like you said, no request from the military to get this happening. No one in the military.
And so I mean, I can't really think of anything it could be except naked pandering to the religious right.
Yeah, that's the only thing it can be. And this idea that I'm going to take away trans health benefits in the military and I'm going to use it for the border wall or some other thing. And it's like, well, you know what? Why don't you pay for your own security at Mar-a-Lago and then we'll have enough for the trans military medical care, you know? But, you know, obviously that's out of the question. But, yeah, so the RAND data also included some information on what transgender military service does to readiness. And what they found out is that it's really minimal impact. And this includes, this is based on previous integration efforts, but it also includes some data on the experiences of foreign militaries. And so most of our allies have integrated trans people into their militaries, you know, years ago. And they've experienced minimal impact on readiness. And in fact, they point out that it's had some positive benefits because it makes the military service more inclusive. So there are very positive aspects of it as well. And then there's a big question about how many people are currently serving as openly trans in the military. And this has been a very difficult demographic to study because, you know, if you step up and say, hey, you know, at least prior to last year, if you stepped up and said, hey, I'm trans, you got kicked out. You know, don't ask, don't tell ended for most of us, but it didn't end for trans people. And so until last year, we couldn't really get accurate numbers. What we have so far is that there are approximately, as best we can determine, about 250, probably a few more than that, but certainly in the low hundreds of people, of transgender people serving in the military. And of that, it's 80 from the Army, that includes active and reserve, 160 in the Navy, plus a handful of Marines, and the Air Force didn't provide any numbers, so we don't really have any basis for assessing how many people in the Air Force are transgender. But we're not talking about a huge number. Somebody was throwing around the number, oh, it's 15,000 people that are going to need, you know, all this surgery and everything. And that's just not true. So it's a pretty minimal number. It's a pretty minimal cost. It's the right thing to do if you want to retain highly qualified volunteers. And it costs a lot of money to recruit and train people to take their place if you just kick them out for no good reason. So anyway, I just wanted to throw some actual numbers out there for people to consider, and the fact that this is not going to have a negative impact on the military. Trust me, I was in the Army for 26 years. This is not a problem with transgender people. I served with some transgender soldiers, and they had to leave the military to transition, and it was the Army's loss. Okay, the problem is not with the transgender people and what they need. This is a leadership problem, and I assure you the Army is all about leadership. We can solve this problem. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So.